Okay, we're going to call this meeting to order, and we have to add to our road permit report to review and sign a certificate of compliance for town road and bridge standards. And we also have the annual financial plan for town highways that we need to sign. And with that, we have the minutes of March 8th.
I'd like to move that we approve the minutes of March the 8th.
Second, please. Okay, any discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
I would like a correction to the minutes, please. In the last line of the minutes, it says forms, F-O-R-M-S, regarding the Declaration of Inclusion. It should say forums, F-O-R-U-M-S.
Forms is how it appeared
On the
I
ballot.
know,
ballot.
and I know. And I had said that I had made a mistake in transcription. I had written to you about that.
Right, but that's what was on the ballot. So you can put a note that they would like to have forums changed to, or forum changed to forum.
We can, but that's how it was voted on.
Yeah,
That's the problem.
Let's see, right, and we can't, just go to the highway budget
And change,
that.
right, exactly.
Let's see. Tonight's minutes can reflect that.
Right, yeah.
That
Yep.
you would like
So
to
do I understand tonight's minutes will
say that
state the correction?
that you are let's see, you can't change what was on the ballot,
Right.
but you are making plain that your intention was for it to be forums.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So, we've already done, voted on the minutes.
We didn't vote on it.
Okay, any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we have warrants 19 and the payroll 19P.
I'll make a motion that we approve warrants 19 and 19P.
I'll second it.
Okay. Any discussion? Warrant 19 is for $61,869.71, and that was going to pay for fuel for the highway department, salt for the roads. There are some ARPA payments to the community center and the historical society. There was the town report printing and mailing, health insurance, payroll transfers, and municipal insurance. Any discussion, any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, let's see. We have ARPA fundings. Anything, I don't think there's anything new on ARPA funding today. Okay. Let's see, we have recognition of visitors and public comment. We have more visitors than we usually do. I think we have more visitors now than we've had in the past year altogether. But on the agenda, Margaret Shugart is going to go first.
Okay. So I'm Margaret, this is Jared Clark. We've been working with the ice rink this year over by Dummerston School, paid for by ARPA funds, thank you. And definitely a wonderful resource. Also, we realize the challenges, climate change related probably, in these warmer winters, and that the daylight hours alone for the rink, really limited use. Warm days and bright sun made for soft ice that wasn't safe for skating. In addition, we found that many children didn't give it a go because they didn't have their own skates. And I think probably there's a hesitation on investing in ice skates until a family knew whether a child really wanted to try or not. We had a really wonderful community event, the Full Moon Ice Skate and Campfire. And for that, Brattleboro Hockey Society and the school, or association and school, let us borrow a series of skates. And we had quite a great turnout, and a lot of skates were borrowed and used. And as we were looking at the limitations on participation this year with the warm days and with the lack of skates, we've been thinking about some other things that the ice rink could use to be a better resource for the community. And that being lighting that could be used at night, which night in the middle of winter is 4:30 p.m. But when things get cold, also in the morning before the sun comes up, and the ice is actually hard and usable. And then having like a warming shed or a storage shed that's accessible to users that would have loaner skates that kids and adults, if there are skates in adult sizes, that could be used and put back. So really what we're here to discuss is some mechanism for setting up a GoFundMe that would enable us to raise those funds. Nate Jinks from the Recreation Board connected me with Charlotte, and we discussed what that might look like. There's some limitations on accepting electronic payments, because anything that comes in, there's a link directly into the municipal, and I'm not an expert on this, so please correct me, into the municipal accounts, and that's not really, I guess, maybe secure or it doesn't work for accounting. So we would need to have a separate account set up to be connected to a GoFundMe, and that account then would be transferred over to municipal funds, to the rec board, or however that's set up for the ice rink. And we could build a capital fund and be able to be better prepared to be a community resource for next year. So that's really what we're here for. It's a select board decision, not a decision that Charlotte can make.
Okay, I think the select board would like to have Charlotte's opinion.
Yes.
Well, I did quite a bit of research about this. GoFundMe keeps the funds until you request them and have them transferred. So it's not like there would be any open, other people going to and from our bank account. We are able to easily set up a unique bank account for it, and then frequently transfer the money into the rec board fund, so that it goes, none of the rec board fund that exists would be, vulnerable to any hacking or anything. There is a 2.9% fee plus 30 cents per transaction. But that's taken off the top by GoFundMe. You can use it for businesses and for municipalities. And I did talk to Joe Little, our auditor, and he felt that that we could monitor and audit the transactions. He saw no problem with it. So I'm feeling a lot more comfortable about it than I was when this whole idea was brought up. I've also investigated electronic payments like Venmo, Zelle, PayPal, things like that. Venmo and Zelle cannot be used for businesses, so that automatically takes that off. PayPal could be, but there's, again, there are more fees involved, and I haven't really looked into PayPal. The other option would be to look into doing credit cards and something like that, which may be something that would benefit the town office also, because other things could be paid with credit cards. It wouldn't just be set up for this. So I think if you all approve, I think it's a thing to possibly do, and I don't see, and Joe didn't see any liability that we would have.
So are you talking about setting up a separate fund from the recreation fund already that exists?
No, just a separate bank account to transfer the money into.
Because we can't set up a separate fund legally without taxpayer approval at a special town meeting or a regular town meeting. We can't set up another fund.
Would this be a fund, Shugart, or would this be a fund or just a conduit to go into the existing fund?
Well, that's what I was seeing it as, just a separate bank account so that the money that was in the rec board wouldn't be vulnerable to anything, and transfer the money from that checking account into our rec fund account. So it would be a temporary account.
Yeah.
If you think that muddies the water, then that's why you all are.
Right,
I
right.
mean, don't we do it usually with accounting? Like the Energy Committee doesn't have a separate bank account, does it?
It has a separate bank account.
Oh, it does?
It does.
Oh, okay.
There are restricted funds.
Right.
So I wouldn't, you may see it as creating a new restricted fund, and it may be, I don't know. I mean, I really don't.
Because there's other town commissions that fundraise or charge for events, like the Conservation Commission.
Right,
And when they collect it, I'm assuming that they pass that on to you.
yes, they do.
So why can't the rec board do that?
They can,
Right.
they can.
Because, I mean, they're already gonna lose 2.9%.
Right.
By and 34 cents or 30 cents a transaction. So people that donate through the GoFundMe, all their money's not going to really go to the cause that you're trying to accomplish.
No, I think the idea is to make this easy for people to donate, right? If people aren't gonna sit down and write a check, then, getting a mailer out or an appeal letter is challenging, is expensive. The response rate isn't great, but if they're skating and there's a QR code, scan it, done. And they can donate right then and there. And I think that's what we're trying to accomplish ultimately. The challenge is clearly the mechanism is difficult, but on the back side, but on the front side for the person donating, it needs to be convenient for them or for the funding to happen.
Does the Conservation Commission find it hard collecting when you charge for events? Or you're asking for donations for some of your,
It's all donation.
it's all by donation,
It's not at all at
what they're asking.
Well, we've often discussed
That's right.
the idea of having a QR code linked to a donation site and using Square or one of the many options there is out there, because the convenience factor is huge these days. People, I never thought I would be somebody who only carried around plastic, but I never have cash in my wallet. So, it's the way of the world now. So, and I could definitely see that. It is unfortunate that GoFundMe does take a fairly large chunk like that. But
Right.
it is,
But so do credit cards.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Right.
do
Right.
debit cards.
Right.
I mean, the credit card we take for taxes takes 4.16% right now. So, I mean, but it's an electronic world, and this generation of parents is growing up in that. I mean, they don't write a check and put it in an envelope and put a stamp on
Right.
it and take it to the post office. I mean,
So, could, having a separate account is just a firewall,
yes.
yes.
And then within the rec board, it would be separated out, just like the go and field is.
Yep.
I keep that on a separate sheet for, a separate page for
Right.
budget line. So,
Well, we want it to be as easy as possible for people to donate, and we want to figure out a way of complying with these other issues.
We want to also make it easy to manage though. So,
Yeah.
we don't want to create too much complexity that are going to be hard for you or successor down the road to manage.
Yeah, and I honestly don't know how the accounting comes in from GoFundMe. I mean, I don't know anything about that. Maybe somebody who's ever used it could help us with that.
Does the bank account have to be tied to the town at all?
For tax
It
purposes.
It does.
It does. I mean, just the bank account side, not when it enters the rec fund.
And payments also have to be run through the Selectboard.
Yes, yeah.
It's a brave new world.
I'd like to think on it more. And actually, I'd like to hear from the Recreation Board.
Okay.
I know May wanted to be here tonight, but this was not able to be. And she has similar questions that she'll bring up on her own in relation to what Charlotte was saying with accepting payments through Venmo and other ways, so that participants in baseball, soccer, not baseball, but soccer and basketball can pay easily. I think she said they just stopped accepting payments altogether. It's too hard. So.
Okay, so to set up a separate account, we have to approve that at town meeting or a special town meeting.
Right.
Just a checking account would have to be,
If we create another fund, which is essentially what you're doing, is you're creating a fund, even though it's gonna be funneled from one fund to another, we can't just arbitrarily set up funds. It has to be done by the voters.
Okay.
And that, I mean, maybe I'm not interpreting it. Maybe
that
I'm
sounds like
literally
a
interpreting it.
VLCT question
Yeah.
to me. I
Yeah,
mean,
so we could look up, we could get their advice, just double check, and we could deal with this maybe at our next meeting. Or not, but, or at least we'd have the information.
Right, yeah.
Yes,
Well, is there no reason we can't do some research to find out how other towns have done this? Because I'm sure we're not the only town that
yeah, I
wants to go.
think Charlotte's already reached out.
I have put a question on the listserv for town clerks and treasurers about if anybody has been using GoFundMe, and nobody responded that they had. No, but I really didn't get a lot of responses either. I mean, so. I mean, Vernon and Brattleboro use different services to collect fees and things like that, but they're very expensive for, I mean, I went back in our books to pre-COVID to see sort of what amount of money we're talking about for fees and, you know, soccer sign-up stuff. It's $2,000. I mean, and if you're talking about $2,000 to set up one of these,
Right.
you know, so.
So is it feasible to do for, I mean, what amount is it feasible to actually set up another account?
Yeah, I don't know.
Right.
But this would be for bigger, I mean, their hopes are to raise, you know, a significant amount of money. That's one problem, and then the other problem is how to create an easy way for people to pay. Which I honestly haven't found.
Right.
So we'll check with VLCT. What's the sense of the board when we are favorably leaning towards doing this without taking a vote on this? Or
I need more information.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, I'm favorably inclined towards doing this, yes.
I think so. You know, I'd like to hear more, particularly the extra workload that might be involved by the town.
I'm not sure it's any more than taking in 50 checks. I mean, you know, it would probably be almost easier to accept donations if they gave us, you know, names and, but I don't really keep track. I mean, that would be the rec board's problem too.
Okay.
If they wanted to send thank you notes or acknowledgements to people, that's not part of my job. I just need to know how much money's coming in.
Right, because if they're donating to a municipality, it's a tax were tax exempt, right?
Yes.
So they would probably expect to get some sort of acknowledgement that they've made a tax deductible donation to this. And so who would be keeping, that would be a question. Who would keep track of that?
And from GoFundMe, my hunch is that GoFundMe can be set up when that the person gets an email confirmation that says you've donated $50 to the ice rink, and it is tax, free or tax deductible.
Yeah.
It probably
Gotten that email before.
That's right.
No, GoFundMe has to do an electronic transfer. That's one of the things. Like when you fully fund a GoFundMe campaign, it has to be an electronic transfer to somewhere. I mean, can GoFundMe cut the town of Dummerston a check and then it goes to Charlotte anyway?
I don't know.
Because that would bypass this whole problem, wouldn't it? If there was a way for them to just.
That's another good question.
Right. And there's no extra account involved.
Just a curiosity.
Question.
Charlie, do you see it as an extra amount of work for you? Are you concerned about that? Because people are saying that.
No, I don't see it as any extra work.
I just wanted people to hear that.
Yeah, I did, and that makes me more comfortable.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm leaning favorably towards it. We just need, to get the information so we know we're doing it correctly. So.
I had no dog in this fight. I just did the research.
So we'll keep in touch and we'll try to have these answers for our next meeting.
Sounds great.
Okay. Thanks for coming in. It's a great idea, I think.
Thank you.
Let's see. Any other public comments for anyone not on the agenda, not a topic that's on the agenda?
Well, we want to talk with you about ARPA, our ARPA request, and then about the DOI, Declaration of Inclusion.
Let's see. We could take since we had ARPA on the agenda, but we could have you speak to the ARPA and then, the DOI also, since that's not on the agenda.
Yeah, I'm having trouble hearing,
Okay.
even though I've got here.
Go ahead. On the ARPA, you had an ARPA?
Yeah, on that subject, it's curiosity that is piquing our interest. The hour tonight is Meg and Katie and Steve is on our board now too. Having spent 3 to 4 months after conversations individually with you and Terry about the ins and outs of ARPA, we put together the request for ARPA funds that we submitted to the board on February 8th, 6 weeks ago. And as I said, curiosity makes us wonder, makes us think about where the request stands at this point, whether there are additional questions we should be thinking about, information we should provide. Would like to know where things stand. 2 of the points that came up on February 8th that Terry made, she said, have you looked into HUD funds? And we have, but there's nothing there that fits what we're looking to do in developing a health and safety fund. And having written HUD applications in the past, they are not applications I would myself ever take on again. They are very challenging. The other point that Terry made was interesting. She asked, have you talked to the Red Cross or looked into Red Cross for smoke alarms? Terry had heard somewhere that there was a program. And Susan Degler checked and she said, yeah, there is a program in Maryland, in Washington, D.C. And we thought that was it. But more recently, we came across a Red Cross program called Sound the Alarm that would be available to qualifying Vermont residents. Smoke detectors would be provided. An inspection of the home would be done first, and installation would be provided. Now, this isn't for anybody. It's only for those who meet certain qualifications. So we're looking more into that, and we'll talk with Fire Chief Rick Lumen about it and talk with the local Red Cross to see where they are at on this kind of program. But that's where we're at. So we'd really appreciate any comments you have or any questions we should be thinking further about. Mm-hmm.
Am I right? Just refresh my memory. The request has been for, is it $45,000?
Yes.
Yeah. And that's for a fund that would be available to.
That's right. And CARES itself would be contributing $20,000 to that fund, so it would be a $65,000 fund.
Let's see, any thoughts? My thought, just to get things rolling, I've sort of put it on the back burner, you know, my back burner.
It's on the back burner, okay.
For me at least. I had some reservations about the fire alarm system that you were giving away, but I think you seem to be addressing that concern, so that's good to hear. We have other requests from other groups in town, and from our highway department. I'm sort of thinking, I'm looking for ways that we can use the money to reduce the burden on taxpayers for projects that would otherwise be paid for in taxes. So I'm myself just sort of waiting a bit to see what other projects and how much we're going to, allocate to, the covered bridge or highway culverts and things like that. So I have it's not in my wastebasket, it's just on the back burner for review in the future.
I agree with Zeke. That we've got so many requests that actually will benefit all the taxpayers in town, whereas you're setting up a fund that may only help a select few. Whereas the projects that have been proposed are going to affect almost every resident in town, such as redecking the covered bridge. That's going to reduce everybody's taxes because we aren't going to have to ask for, who knows, $85,000, $100,000 to redeck the bridge.
Okay.
That was.
I think
that's my view too, and I go back to one of the founding principles of the ARPA, utilization of the ARPA funds was to improve infrastructure in the town. And that's something that I will be looking at when we decide on how we allocate the money.
I think, my response to the request might have been a little wrong if it wasn't so specific. If you had just said, to carry out the mission of Dummerston Cares, we were applying for $20,000 to carry out programs that we were looking to do.
Okay.
I sort of stumbled over, the specifics of it.
And speaking for myself, I'm fairly new to the Selectboard process, obviously, and, having been involved with ARPA appropriations, but my sense is that, the ARPA funds shouldn't be used for sort of ongoing expenses that could build dependence on those funds. And for example, there was I think a letter in the Reformer the other day, somebody worried about using ARPA funds in Brattleboro to hire 3 firefighters. That's not the intent of ARPA funds, because it would, create budgetary dependence on those funds, and it's not an ongoing thing. So, I'd want to look at this request relative to that. I wouldn't want, Dummerston Cares to, become dependent on funds that aren't going to be there in 2 years for replenishing that $65,000 fund.
Each request would be a request unto itself. And in terms of the future of the program, if it were successful, we would fundraise for it, and are confident we could continue it that way. We did this for COVID, people who were out of work. We provided maybe 10 to 12 people with $200 a month, for some for 4 or 5 months, others for 2 or 3, with one fundraising letter. And so we're confident that it's not the type of program that you're talking about in Brattleboro with the fire department. Very different from that. The example we gave you was one where a resident in town, I won't identify the person or even where in town, but her spring went dry in December, and we were able to work with Sevka to see that she got a well for $15,000. We paid $1,400, Sevka came up with the rest. They knew the well driller that they use in situations like this. The well got drilled in early January. She's very happy.
So
she can continue to live in her house this winter. Yeah. So it's that kind of project. We may need to come up with $1,000 to $3,000 for a new well, a septic system, some other emergency breakdown.
Great. That's helpful.
Yes.
I don't really know the specifics of this, but it sounds more like it's money sort of sitting there waiting for a problem rather than for specific things up front. Is that true? So the town we can't create a reserve fund with ARPA money. So this sounds a little like a reserve fund. I don't know if we can give it away to create a reserve fund, but.
Right, that was the thought, that we allocated to them, and they would have it as a reserve fund.
But that's one of the things we can't do for us. So I don't know if that's
That's in the ARPA guidelines.
Right.
Right.
It's one of the few things that we can't use it for. So I don't know if giving it away for somebody to do that absolves our responsibility for.
Because they don't have a specific project.
Right.
Right.
We're able to help individuals who have small repair needs, through our so-called Shore Core program, all volunteer provided. And we've been hearing from Sevka and others several times a year situations like this fund would be available to assist. So that's a step up from Chore's Corps, a big step, but one that would be helpful. When we talked with the SEVCA people, they said they've got a list. How many, Meg, did they say? 40, 50?
40 is the number that I recall.
In, you know, people, situations in various towns in the county. And if we had this kind of, and there are 2 or 3 Dummerston families on that list. And if we had this fund, it would bump people in Dummerston up because we could help pay for, at least in part, and do some of the legwork for SEVCA, you know, with those families and individuals.
And I think it's a great program, and you know, I'm very excited that that's happening as a safety net for people in the town that really need it. You know, my question is about whether it's an appropriate use of the ARPA funds. And I just
and that's what, why we talked to Terry in particular. I'm sorry she's not here tonight, but we walked away from that conversation, it was a Zoom conversation, thinking that this would work. And so it took a while to get our heads together on it. And so, you know, that's where we came out. And, you know, it clearly has to fit into some niche in ARPA regs and what's allowed in ARPA, and you need to make sure of that. And that's why we're here tonight. We just want to see the thing continue to move, and you know, if it works out, great. If it doesn't, well, it doesn't. Yeah. So the other, do you have any questions or comments?
No, I just, the one thing about the reserve question, when we met with Terry, she made it very clear, I thought, I don't think I was misreading the conversation, but her point to us is that should we get a grant, the monies would be kept by Dummerston Cares, and there's no deadline for us to spend the money, which is why we thought, you know, we would ask for the amount, because, you know, we would ask people to qualify for these funds, but that they would be there for years to come. You know, it's not as though we have, you know, 12 months to give money away. We would be giving it away judiciously, and we would be, you know, good stewards of the money. And that's one of the sort of liberating pieces of this that made us feel is that, well, we could really do this.
Yeah.
We're not under some, you know, deadline to get it done and not do it well.
She said that if we were to receive money, we would be considered a beneficiary, unlike, you know, a town department or whatever. And there's more flexibility in the way a beneficiary can use and handle ARPA funds than others more directly connected to the government. Yeah. So.
Well, we have to think of these within the context of all of the other requests, which we'll do over the next few months.
So, although it's on my back burner, I'll turn the heat up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, I appreciate you coming in too.
So can we talk about
the
declaration of inclusion?
Yes, you may. Yes.
Okay. So when I looked at the board agenda for this evening, I didn't see declaration of inclusion, which caught my attention because when we met with the board last August on this subject and had a discussion about our interest in having the board follow the path of some 80 other boards of select persons around the state and approved the declaration. At that point, the discussion ended with a decision, no, it would be better to go to town meeting and have townspeople vote on it. Okay, so we then thought, should we put together a petition and ask for an article on the warning? And we talked with you, Steve, about that, Zeke, and you know, you said don't bother. We'll put it on. It can be taken up under other business. And so, all right, that was done. You were good enough to put it on the Australian ballot, the full declaration, and it was voted on by a very strong vote, something like
832.
632 to 34 or something.
832
832.
to 34.
Yeah. So anyway, it passed overwhelmingly.
We didn't have 800
No.
people voting.
No.
But just
Well, my understanding from conversation, well, beginning at the August meeting, and then some conversations with you, and maybe I misunderstood, but I thought that after the town meeting vote, the Australian ballot vote, the board would then take it up and formally adopt it, act on the advice of the people. I know the word non-binding follows the word advice, you know, in front of the declaration, but without your approval of it, it really has very little meaning or worth. It describes the interest of the
okay.
townspeople.
I have to disagree with you and interrupt you, even though it's rude of me. But having the voters state their approval or ratifying this declaration is the highest, form of democracy that I can think of. The Selectboard, I think we're the tail, and you're asking us to wag the dog. I think there's nothing that could be higher than, the people voting in favor of this. So there was nothing about us coming back and adopting it.
But we did adopt it at our last meeting.
No, we read it. We read it into the minutes.
Right.
So it was a record of that this was the voters had, decided this issue.
So Dummerston, if you don't adopt it yourselves, we will continue to be a town without a declaration of inclusion.
No, the voters have adopted this resolution.
A non-binding,
It is
an advisory, non-binding
because,
resolution.
yeah, it's, how would the select board enforce welcoming people? I think
There are
that's something
things
that
the
has
board
to
could
come
do.
from the people and the residents of town. And I'm a resident, and so, and I voted on this issue too.
Putney, for example, adopted it, and the select board appointed a committee, an inclusion committee, to think about how it could be adopted, put into effect in town. Something as simple as a sign could be put in this building and at the town office with the declaration on it. It could be included in the website. There may be other things that could be done. Newcomers to town could look at it and say, well, this is a great town, but how serious are they about this non-binding resolution? The select board isn't even behind it. All of the towns surrounding us, plus 100 towns throughout Vermont, have adopted it through select board action. So I guess I find it curious that where the people lead in this instance, the select board is not up to following the lead of the people who say that we support such a document or such a policy.
And if I could say, the spirit of this Declaration of Inclusion, which has already been proclaimed by Governor Scott in May of 2021, is to be welcoming, but it's important to have the civic spine of Vermont standing up to welcome and be inclusive. And so there are 102 towns in Vermont now whose select boards have adopted this. And I don't think very many adopted by town vote. So here we did adopt by town vote. And now we're asking the select board to be the civic representative of the will of the people.
Okay.
Then what would you have us do?
Vote to adopt the Declaration of Inclusion.
Yeah, bring it to a vote.
And what, as the legislative body for the town, what should we adopt this? What would be required of us?
What would be what?
Required of us.
Well, there are recommendations for implementation of this. And so this would be at VermontDeclarationOfInclusion.com. It's part of the League of Cities and Towns website that they made in order to promote the Declaration of Inclusion. Let me just see. So, recommendations for implementation in a town. Post the declaration in public buildings such as town hall, the library, community center, fire station. Post the declaration on the town's website. Include a report in the town's annual report telling how the Declaration of Inclusion encourages broader equity and inclusion in a state having both a dwindling and an aging population. And so paying attention to how inclusion encourages a growth in population, a growth in diverse population is important. This is something that immediately caused the Rotary in Brattleboro to adopt this. The Vermont State Chamber of Commerce immediately adopted this because they understand how important declaring our allegiance to equity and inclusion can be encouraging to population growth, diverse population growth. Now that's the beginning. Then there's another level of inclusion or implementation rather, that could be having a committee of equity and inclusion. The idea is, and Zeke, you and I have talked about this, you asked me, do you think we try to discriminate, etc.? And of course not. The idea is to bring this declaration out into the open, to celebrate it, and to work together with the select board whose intentions we trust are good.
Any thoughts?
Well, I wasn't, I guess kind of like Zeke, I thought by the town voters adopting it so overwhelmingly, it was a done deal. And I wasn't aware of, the other roles that the select board can play in, adopting a policy, other things that the town could be doing. So I'd like to have us talk about that, and I thank you for bringing it up.
Yeah, we can talk about it more.
Okay.
How do we talk about it more?
With we're here now.
Okay, should we talk about it now?
Well, you talked about the town, that they're suggesting that the town form a committee.
You talked about,
that one of the recommendations was that the town form a committee.
that's if the town and voters decide to get a higher level of implementation.
We have trouble now getting people to serve on commissions and boards and committees. So to create another one, I can't imagine that we have committees now that are severely understaffed, that are important to this town. And I'm not saying that this isn't important, but for me, I would rather see committee members on our planning commission, our DRB, other committees in town that affect the everyday workings of our town.
Well, I respectfully disagree, Marie, because people will choose what committee they want to work on, what committee speaks to them, what committee draws their fervor. I'm not a numbers person. You're not going to see me on any budget committee, but I very strongly advocate for social justice. And I would gladly, oh my gosh, don't tell my husband, I would gladly chair an equity and inclusion committee. And I know several people who have come to me to say, my gosh, this wasn't adopted yet. We have to work to do that. So I know there are people who would do that. My point in refuting your claim, Marie, is that people focus on what calls them. And I think that this committee, if it were decided to be adopted, I think people would serve on it.
Oh, I'm not saying that they wouldn't serve on it. I'm saying that we have other committees in town. I mean, like the Planning Commission and the DRB that are legally required to do things by state statute. And we don't have enough people. The Planning Commission is down to, I think, 3 or 4 people. And we're supposed to have a membership of 7 at this point, because we actually reduced it because we couldn't find 9 people to serve on it. So we voted last summer, I think, to reduce the numbers to 7, and now we're down to 4.
Well,
but I think Maria's, I think the point's being made that it would be different people.
Right.
You know, someone who would serve on this inclusion committee isn't probably someone who would also want to be on the planning commission. So I'd be inclined to consider that, forming a new committee. Do you think there would be a critical mass of people like yourself who would join that committee?
I definitely do. And this is not a fait accompli. We don't know if we would go to a higher level of implementation. So anyway, the levels of implementation are listed on the Vermont Declaration of Inclusion.com or .org, excuse me, and that can explain. I can give you that information. I'll send you a link to this so that you can see what's what. Right now we're asking for the Selectboard, evidently for the Vermont Declaration of Inclusion, League of Cities and Towns to acknowledge us. We do have to have as I say, the civic spine of the Selectboard to also support the will of the voters.
I have another comment.
If the select board is reluctant to formally adopt this measure and the voters already have, and if your reluctance stems from this kind of the vagueness problem that it's not exactly enforceable, it's not exactly an ordinance, what exactly is it and what should we do with it, can't a civilian committee such as yourself that you already have formed feed piecemeal to them implementation steps that they can then consider without doing their own homework into this website or anything else. If you wanna say, put it on the website, then make that an agenda item. It seems like a very reasonable thing to have on our website. It was adopted by the voters. Then that's a very concrete, specific link that can be put on the website. That's a task that's easy for everyone to vote on. I'm not sure that just giving it to them and saying, go gallop with it, is necessarily gonna be as productive as you would even want it to be.
I'm
Whereas-
sorry, what do you mean by go gallop with it?
Just pass the impetus and the responsibility to the select board. I'm not sure that would even go where you want it to go, but if you were to suggest to them, at your next meeting, can you consider it going on the website or a sign, all those things that you said, you could probably get done one at a time, or a number of them anyway.
Yes,
The
well,
exact steps, though.
The exact steps.
We want it posted on these buildings. We want it put on the website here. Like they just want. It seems to me that they want something to vote on. They want something like a request.
well, the request is, will the select board vote to adopt the will of the people by adopting the Declaration of Inclusion?
But I think we want an action plan. What are the things we would, as a town, be implementing? I think your point is great. I think that we'd find that very valuable, would be receptive to.
Right. I told you that if you'd like a plaque at the town office, speak to Lori Prichette, the town
Oh, I've
clerk.
already spoken with Lori.
She is the highest authority in the town office.
She
You
is
know,
Miss
we don't tell
Congeniality.
her what to do. She's an
Yeah.
elected official.
Yes.
And so if she would like to have a plaque in the town
She has
office,
approved.
there you go. She doesn't need the select board to tell her to do that. We don't have authority over the town clerk.
But we appropriate funds, and if there were funds involved with these implementation measures, we would need to consider them, right?
If I could say, I don't even know that funding would be necessary if people who felt strongly about this would donate to have the posters made. And it would not be my intention, the intention of Dummerston Cares, the sponsoring organization, to heap responsibility onto you.
Then why wouldn't Dummerston Cares as its own separate organization, you could make up your own posters with the wording, and you could approach the librarian, you could approach the historic, you could do all the action steps as your own organization.
Well, we have implemented this in a couple of organizations in town. The important thing, according to the League of Cities and Towns, is to have a town adopt this as well, so that it can be celebrated as a welcoming place. And what they're trying to do is to get all 246 cities and towns on board. So far, they've got 102, which is over 60% of the population.
I think the town of Dummerston, the people, the town of Dummerston is the people in Dummerston, and they voted in favor of this. So I think that's great, and I think the people of Dummerston have spoken. And
Well, you're telling us, this is something that we understand already. And now the people of Dummerston who have adopted this, I'm speaking on behalf of them,
you're
asking.
speaking for yourself.
This weekend, this Saturday, I'm going to be up at a select board training meeting, and I've been thinking about that relative to this discussion. That's something I can bring up with other select board members and with the Vermont League of Cities and Towns to get a better personal understanding about the role the select board should be playing in implementing this declaration that the town clearly supports. So I plan to do that, and we'll bring findings back to the select board.
Okay. Well, so far in Windham County, we have 12 towns that have adopted this. Either by select board, mostly by select board. I don't know that any other, I don't think there was no other town in Windham County that had the townspeople vote. So we have Athens, Bellows Falls, Brattleboro, Brookline, Guilford, Jamaica, Londonderry, Newfane, Putney, Rockingham, Vernon, and Wilmington who have adopted.
Plus Dummerston, because the
No,
town.
we have not adopted it yet because the select board has not voted.
The people of the town voted overwhelmingly to approve this. That
Or
is,
a non-binding resolution, an advisory one that the select board could take into consideration. You know, we erred by not submitting an article to go on the warning. We should have done that and not let it go under other business. We were all prepared to put out petitions, and then we talked with you, Zeke, frankly, and you said it's not necessary, and we went along with that.
Right.
And here we are, going back and forth, so.
So the resolutions of the other towns are considered binding?
Yeah, because the select board adopted it.
How can you enforce welcoming? Are we going to set up morality police or something along the lines of Iran? Although this is a wonderful thing, I think it's the select board saying how you're going to behave is the first step towards fascism, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, and it is the furthest thing from the intent of this. But so that's why I'm so adamant that the people voted for this, and that's where it should stay. That the five of us.
I think
We have no interest in becoming the enforcers of welcoming behavior. I would do that in my heart and in my everyday work and actions, but I would resent the select board telling me that this is the, and having it in every building I went to. It sounds like 1984. It's just when it gets to having us adopt it, it just changes the whole thing for me. It becomes an authoritarian move, and I just, I have a visceral reaction to this. I just want the voters to respect what the voters said and have that be, because I don't feel there's any higher authority than the voters coming forward and saying, yes, this is what we believe.
You look to the League of Cities and Towns for guidance on a number of things.
But not on moral issues.
I would encourage you or someone on the board to have a conversation with the person at the league who knows this subject and has experience with many towns throughout the state. The league itself is a strong supporter and is encouraging action by boards of select persons. It would be interesting to hear their view. Yes.
Excuse me, I do want to say that to call this authoritarian and the beginning of fascism, I find very offensive. This is a declaration of inclusion.
Right. And I make the distinction between the intent of this and what it is. I think it's a wonderful thing, and the opposite of fascism and authoritarianism. My issue is I don't think we should have the select board adopting this. The people have already spoken on this, and I just believe fundamentally that there's no higher authority than that.
Well, this is
So it's a
this is
philosophical
disappointing.
disagreement.
It's disappointing and
Yes.
And-
I'm just speaking for myself, not the whole board.
well, at some point, I think we would like the board to speak, to vote.
Somebody on the board has to call for a vote. You can't do that from the floor.
And I want to do some more looking into this on Saturday at this select board training meeting. And I also want to find out what differentiates a non-binding resolution from binding actions. If other towns have taken, have binding policies, what does that mean relative to inclusion? So I need to get up to speed personally, and if I feel after doing that it's an appropriate policy or resolution for the select board to take up, I'll move that effect.
Okay. One more thing. If an ad hoc committee were to take this on and come to the select board and say, we think, the zoning bylaws are, there are problems with it here, and this, section and this section could be worded differently to be more welcoming, or some other, our drug and alcohol policy for town employees needs some change, or we need to, stop using the term road foreman, and we should have road
Personnel.
road personnel. I'd be happy to take suggestions and act on those and change the bylaws or whatever offending words were in the town policies and anything that I'd be more than happy to go along with that.
Well, it's my understanding that some towns, Putney for instance, has formed a committee of equity and inclusion and has reviewed town policy, town bylaws, whatever, for wording, for equity, for inclusion, and is working with Putney in whatever way.
I'd be happy if you went home tonight and took all the town policies and started going through them, and if you found sections or parts that you felt weren't welcoming or weren't inclusive, to come back to us, and I'd be happy to change those things.
Well, that's good to know, Z. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming in.
But yeah, my objection still stands with, I don't want to tell, Charlotte or someone that she has to be more welcoming or something like that.
As I say, I don't think that is the intent at all of this Declaration of Inclusion, that the select board tells people how to be welcoming in a fascist or authoritarian way. Please hear me on the record.
You are on the record.
Okay.
Anyone else want to address this issue? Okay, moving on. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, let's see. We have the road foreman's report, the road commissioner's report. Let's see. And I guess that's going to be me tonight. Let's see. The road crew is working on grading. As the roads are drying out, they're starting to do some grading. The dump truck on Lost Mile Road needs a new axle, and the hydraulic pump on the new truck has been replaced. We don't know what the cost of that was. a new axle on the dump truck is probably going to be in the neighborhood of 7,000 to 8,000. Let's see.
And the hydraulic pump?
It doesn't have a price on that. It hasn't gotten a bill yet, as far as we know. Charlotte might have gotten it.
Wasn't something under warranty or so?
I think there was some problem maybe with the connections between the plow and the truck itself that voided the warranty, or maybe not voided it, but the warranty didn't apply because the problem was, outside the truck itself. So I think that's all for the road foreman.
I have,
Yeah.
we've been asked by AOT to submit our damages or whatever for the storm. And we came up with about $16,000 in additional overtime, sand. That also includes the usage of the trucks and the plows and all that sort of stuff. She doesn't think that we're gonna meet FEMA threshold for, it was like 1.1 million and so, but then I got an email at 5 o'clock today from Alyssa Sabato, who's Wyndham Regional, wanting the same information. So I don't know if they're
Aggregating it?
Yeah, submitting it to a different place, or if she was just doing research. I didn't get any answer back from her. So.
Okay.
And then I'll just add the FEMA money. We, with what we've gotten back, which is almost everything, we were ahead $1,000.
Wow.
But we're also are going to receive the Category Z, which is administrative costs, of $81.65. And then once that is paid out by FEMA, then the state will give us their 5%. So that's the last to come in. Hopefully it'll be this fiscal year. And that is approximately $17,500. So we'll make $25,000, or we're not making anything because that was salary and stuff that we've already paid. But above what we had to pay contractors and directly for materials and stuff would be $25,000 ahead. So better than nothing.
Yeah, it's better than nothing.
Yeah.
Right. Speaking of $25,000, the old dump truck the old truck that's being replaced, the 1 ton that's being replaced, was sold for $25,000, which was better than the $12,000 that we were offered in trade.
Yeah,
That's great.
Yeah, so we're about $24,000 under what we allocated in the capital fund for that truck. So that's great.
So that's going back into the capital
That's
fund.
going back into the capital fund, yeah.
Along the lines of the storm, let's see, the road crew worked long and hard to open roads and keep them clear. The power company and the tree cutting companies, once they knew that Dummerston was here, they were very responsive and worked hard to get roads cleared, as did private contractors that helped out. And our emergency management director, Marty Ferret, was really helpful. There were people who called who needed help or services or were stranded, and he responded to every one of them and helped them out in whatever way they needed. So that was great that he was so helpful to them. So
I talked to someone who had a utility crew from Nova Scotia repairing lines at their place, near their place. It's great to see companies chipping in with each other.
Right. Okay. That all the storm damage?
I think so.
Okay. Well, we have the certification of compliance for town road and bridge.
Are we going to award without Lee here, we're not gonna award any of the bids?
Oh, no, we should do that.
He was gonna
Did
be
he give us-
evaluating the bids.
He was evaluating them, and I don't know, has he gotten back to any of
Let's
us?
see. Yes. We'd like, for the lumber, for the covered bridge, you'd like to go with Allard. And with the, I better get this right. For the burner,
There were two bids, one from Northern Outdoor Furnaces, and the other was New England Outdoor Furnace.
okay, the 17,000 was lower.
19,925.66.
That was, what his recommendation was,
Okay.
so.
So we can have a motion on this.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we award the outside boiler bid to Northern Outdoor Furnaces for $19,925.66.
Second.
Okay, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
And I'll make a motion that we award the covered bridge oak decking to Allard Lumber for the amount of $17,500.
Second.
Okay, discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
By the way, on that bid, the Allard quoted on a slightly lower, smaller amount of board feet. But I calculated that their cost for the larger quantity that the other bids were about would be $18,750, so it's still significantly less than.
Right. And they had also offered to actually deliver and stack the wood and paint the end. So they were going to do a little bit more. Their bid of 7,000 board feet was based on their measurements of what they actually thought was needed. Okay, so now we could do certification of compliance for town roads and bridges standards and network inventory.
So I'll make a motion that we sign the Town Roads and Bridge Standard Certificate of Compliance and the Town Highway Annual Financial Plan.
Second that.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay, just putting in the date here.
Second.
And it's 2023 now, okay? These just have to be signed. And then we have the annual financial plan, town highways.
I did them both together.
Oh, okay, great. Great, and this just certifies that funds raised by municipal taxes are equivalent to or greater than a sum of at least $300 per mile of each mile of class 1, 2, and 3 town highways. So, there we go, that one. And I think that does it for our road foreperson's report. Is there anything under correspondence for information that you'd like to go over? Okay. Then, under new business, let's see. We have some fire department members and some conservation commission members waiting, but I think we can go through the agenda in order fairly quickly. Any ARPA updates? No more, okay. Appointments to committees and commissions.
Sure, I'll make a motion that we make the following appointments. Wyndham Regional Commission, Todd Davidson. Wyndham Solid Waste Management District Representative, Michelle Charrier. Vermont Community Development Program, Jack Mannix. Farmland Protection Committee, Noah Haskins, Diana Lesher, Jack Mannix, Reed Miller, Elizabeth Wood, and June Levinson.
Second.
Okay, discussion?
Should we add to that, I did hear back from Eric Lineback, who agreed to be reappointed to both the Energy Committee and the Fiber Committee.
Okay.
So I'll add Energy Committee, Eric Lineback, and to the DV Fiber Board,
Eric Lineback.
Eric Lineback.
And he hasn't heard back from the other
David
Evans.
Evans. Okay.
So there's special paperwork to fill out for the DV Fiber, but I'll get it and fill it out.
Okay.
So that's accepted as an amendment friendly.
Did we vote yet?
No, I'm not. Okay, any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. Okay, let's see, we are down a lister.
Funny, read the liquid tax collector yet?
No, I don't think we, no, I don't think we have. Do you want me?
Yes, please.
All right, I'll make a motion that we appoint Charlotte as the delinquent tax collector.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And she's done a wonderful job.
Yes.
Excellent work. Yeah, I give you a standing ovation, but
Yeah.
save it for another time. Let's see.
Appoint
Okay.
Jean Newell.
Yes, well, yeah, we have a vacancy among our listers. Jean Newell, who has some experience in the office, has offered to fill in for a year.
I'll make a motion that we appoint Jean Newell to the open lister seat until town meeting 2024.
Second that.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, great. I'll let you know the good news.
Okay.
Okay, the Conservation Commission has requested that we reconsider the permit, the zoning permit for the covered bridge steps. And okay, let's see. Last time we had just 4 members, and we had a tie vote. So theoretically, we're back to 5 members, and so I raised the warning. This is warned. I think we would either we would consider whether we would vote on the permit at our next meeting, or yes or no for the next meeting.
Yeah, I think that's what we would have to do. We wouldn't need a motion today to, or would we, to put that back on? No, we don't need a motion. So what we do at the next meeting, we'll have we can vote on the zoning request.
Yes.
And I think that I'm going to see what the vote is.
Okay. And we would, okay, so we'd have a motion to consider this, the permit at our next meeting.
Yeah, I don't
We
think.
can just put it on the agenda, can't we?
Okay.
Yeah, just put it on the agenda.
Great.
Yeah.
Good.
So this, putting it in the agenda here as new business didn't count as adding it to the agenda? Could we just vote on it tonight?
This is a parliamentary question. What do you think?
I would rather wait for the full board.
Okay, we can do that.
Unless somebody on the board wishes to make a motion.
Yeah, we could do that. I know I spoke with Terry about this morning or this afternoon, and she would vote against this again. And I explained that I would vote in favor of it again. having spoken with Wade Masur yesterday, on the condition, I guess, that my understanding is the Conservation Commission will be responsible for the cost of the steps and will maintain the steps. And the advice of the insurance inspector was that there'd be signage saying, use at your own risk, or caution, slippery when wet, some sort of warning. Let's see, he was very pleased that there will be a handrail as part of the new steps, and that both the town, over the issue of liability, should someone fall and sue the town, the town attorney and Wade Masur was saying that the steps should be monitored on a regular sort of basis, and if you check it once a month or something, that should be recorded someplace, and at the end of the year, that log book should be, a copy should be given to the select board or town clerk, and
that would be used in the event of a lawsuit, so
Yes.
to be able to go back and say, you know, it's being monitored and.
Monitored for condition,
Yes,
not weather condition.
no, not weather condition.
The actual physical
Yes.
condition of the steps.
Yeah, that they're not, the hand railing hasn't fallen over, or
Right.
a step washed away, or that they're in safe condition to be used.
And in such event that something is
That you would
broken, that it
yeah.
would be in a timely manner.
you close the
Repair.
steps and
Well, close.
until the repairs are done. And I think my understanding is that the Conservation Commission has offered to maintain this. So,
With the objective of building a staircase that requires very little. That's what we're that's the aim of the design of this
That's right, these infiltration steps.
right.
So the approval that we would be voting on if a motion is made, that allows the Conservation Commission to go to the next step of submitting an application, is that right, or?
So where we're at is we're at the 60% stage of a design grant
Okay.
that we applied for and received last year. And when the select board voted not to proceed with the local permit process, that stalled out the work on the design grant, which we have already committed to. So there is a little bit of a time issue
That's what I was
here.
wondering.
Really pushing this back to March was pretty difficult for us. We're working in coordination with the Wyndham Regional Natural Resources Conservation District. I just have the hardest time saying that. And Evan Fitzgerald of Fitzgerald Environmental Associates on this, and you know, it was with a lot of hemming and hawing, you know, that they said, okay, I think we can still swing this. The thing is once the design grant is completed, and it has now been delayed, we enter into the implementation grant process. At the moment, there's ample funding, we're given to believe, available to implement this. But how long that money will sit there, we just don't really know. So that's why we're all here, and we'll continue to be here at any meeting, because we're a little gun shy now. I considered the permitting process, it seemed like almost a formality, having gone this deep into this and and the select board having signed, in fact, a commitment letter. This, in essence, doesn't honor that letter. So we're here to answer any questions that you guys have. We don't want to have any more delay. But understanding that these issues have to be thrashed out, and I'm perfectly happy to talk about liability all day long if you want. So
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the zoning request of the Conservation Commission for the construction of the cottage steps.
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion. Okay. So you think we can do this?
It's noted that Terry is opposed to it.
Yes.
So that's expressed.
So you mentioned monitoring.
Yeah.
Monthly. I don't think monthly is sufficient. Right now, it might be. Middle of the summer, you might have to monitor it every day. The amount of activity that's on at that covered bridge is incredible.
Right.
And then you mentioned the cost of any repairs would be through the Conservation Commission. So are you saying that they will not be seeking town funds? They
yeah.
are a town committee.
Right.
So is this still going to cost the taxpayers money?
I think they're going to, the way I would look at it would be, they looked or asked the voters to approve $1,000 for their committee for the next fiscal year.
Mm-hmm.
I would think that the following year, I don't think they would increase that to $1,000 plus $500 for step maintenance or something like that.
So monitoring more often would be your personal preference, but that's not what according to the attorney, they requested a monthly.
No,
Is that
no,
correct?
they just,
So it's a generic.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
well, how does the town deal with
It
similar
has to
locations?
be done so that it does not appear that the town is being, or the Conservation Commission is being negligent. So, if you inspect the steps on Monday, they look great, and we get 3 inches of rain on Tuesday, it would seem like it would be prudent to have someone go by and check the steps on Wednesday.
How was this done in the past with the current existing staircase and the approval of it?
I don't think the select board approved the steps. I think some people just went ahead and.
No, the select board approved, according to Lynn, who's not here.
Yeah.
The select board was involved.
Okay.
And it certainly was with the kind of, at least advice and consent of the select board. It wasn't just a kind of rogue team of citizens that started, there was machinery that had to be, approved. There was,
It was an excavator.
it was an excavator involved. It wasn't quite as ad hoc as that, is my understanding. I wasn't there. And unfortunately, I'm not even 100% sure Lynn was, but I think so. We could check with Mary Ellen. But once a month is fine. I would be curious to know, there are other infiltration steps in Dummerston, as far as I know, or certainly in Brattleboro. So we can check and see on what they're doing and what would be considered reasonable. I mean, I'm assuming this is kind of a reasonable person standard of some sort, right? So, whatever it is, I think we can all agree it will be a vast improvement over what is happening right now. Which is no maintenance, no checks, no nothing.
Has there been any discussion in your talks with attorneys and insurance adjusters about the current liability for the existing staircase?
No. The idea was the existing stairway was considered hazardous, so the recommendation was to put gravel over it, and just have a path.
Is that?
It was recommended that it be returned to a natural state.
Because it's not in a natural state. Yeah.
The immediate result of that was that the people who wanted to use the area scraped the gravel off, and in one instance it was for a wedding party, So they scraped off a little narrow area and had a woman in a full bridal dress traipsing down.
It was after yes, I think it was, and I was involved in that. Terry and I met Wade at the site and talked about the gravel, and I think we all thought that that would work. And as I presented to you last summer, it didn't. That was a mistaken view. It didn't work at all. The grade is too steep for the stability of a gravel path. It just turned into kind of a gravel avalanche problem, you know, with the parts. It's just an absolute perilous mess. And in terms of liability, the town did that. I hope that your attorney or your insurance adjuster made that clear, that it wasn't returned to a natural state, that it was in a natural state already because steps had been installed. And then, you know, by act of humans, a bunch of very slippery, you know, fine gravel was laid over the steps. And last summer, I mean, I myself met a gentleman who was injured on the steps, had his hand in a cast because he had fallen on the steps. I was going down, he was coming up, and I asked him how he hurt his hand. You know, so I can't imagine. I mean, it's just like right now the situation is, you know, I appreciate the concern of, are these proposed new steps going to carry with them liabilities? Absolute question that should be asked. I just think that it should be asked in the context of, how does that compare with where we are? We can't pretend we're in a different situation than we are in fact in. We have a very heavily trafficked, very popular place with both local people and with people, you know, leaf peeping up Route 30. This is a place people love to stop, get married in.
And as long as there's a parking lot and a covered bridge, it will never return to natural state.
It will never return to that. It cannot.
Or unless there's a physical steel barrier, which would cost a lot more than a new staircase put in front of it.
Yes, in addition to which the parking lot itself, and this is a huge part of this proposal, the parking lot itself, of course, sheds water off of it. And a lot of that water is running down, you know, it goes towards that corner and it goes down approximately where the steps are. That is very unnatural, and a really key part of the design that we're at 60% at right now is additional rainwater collection basins that at the corners, sort of basically at least 3 of the corners, and I think a French drain or something.
Well, the sloping of the pavement.
Along the front, to prevent just that sort of washing effect, the erosion of that bank down into the river, which is just degrading the land, the river, the stability of the parking lot, and the safety of any visitors. It's, you know, so this is not just steps. It's actually a fairly comprehensive, if you've had a chance to look at what Fitzgerald Environmental has put together so far, it's a fairly comprehensive approach to that site to make it safe in, you know, ecologically and recreationally.
There'd be equalizing rainwater basins on both sides of the entrance as you come in, because the current problem is that all the water goes right towards the stone abutment and then sheds down that, and finds its way down the staircase. So they realized that issue, and then I believe in that design there's also, like you said, some sort of bio.
Is it along the railing, right?
Yeah, and then down to that little kiosk. There's supposed to be a way to retain the water there as well. So
that's right.
Fitzgerald has done so many of these and have a lot of, you know, examples, a lot of their past work, examples of where this has been.
Having read through the Fitzgerald plan and all the materials the Conservation Commission has supplied, you know, my feeling is that not doing anything, you know, if we're worried about liability, not doing anything increases our exposure more than fixing the steps. And having worked with Jesse through the Retreat Farm when he was facilities manager there, I'm confident that the steps that the Conservation Commission will create will be durable, will be safe, And I don't feel they would need, you know, daily or weekly inspection. I think the recommendation of monthly inspection would be perfectly adequate.
And I think it goes without saying, should any of these storms come by, I'm gonna go over there anyway.
Yeah, and check it out.
I mean,
Or even
this is
really
just-
like high waters.
Yes.
I mean, you'd want to know what happened on the site.
Could I add a bit of history here? People forget over time the sequence of how things happen, but at one point the bridge abutment was taken out, all the stone was relayed. At that point, they had to take those steps out. They were removed, they were put back in by Renaud Construction, I assume at the insistence of the town. We didn't tell them to do it. You know, so at that point, it kind of get a little muddy, just, you know, who's responsible for the current steps as they are.
Well, on town land, it would be awfully hard if someone did argue and somehow got through sovereign municipal immunity and somehow got through insurance and somehow got through every other protection that the town has against this sort of suit. They're still left to, I mean, they would, I think, have a good case to argue that on town land, at the town's instruction, these existing steps are there. I mean, they exist.
So would the Conservation Commission, write a letter to the select board and keep in our records that they will inspect the steps, that they'll be responsible financially for upkeep and repair. Let's see. What other things?
The signage you wanted on there?
Yes, that you'll keep a log of the inspections and that a copy of that will be given to the town at the end of the year for the records in case there's ever a lawsuit. We can present, the steps we want.
To demonstrate maintenance and upkeep.
And as far as signage is concerned, because I know this can be a difficult issue in zoning and stuff, was it just one sign? Was that what was requested?
Some signage that clearly made it to the public clear that they were going down those steps at their own risk.
Yeah, own risk, that's right.
You could also put no lifeguard on duty.
That's
that sort of.
Yeah.
Could I call for a vote?
Yep. Okay. So, any more discussion? Okay, all those in favor of signing the permit?
Aye.
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 Nay.
Okay, and although Terry's not here, she will. Okay, great. We'll sign this. Oh, we'll just sign it.
Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Not much, sir.
See you, John. Thanks for coming. And thank you also for making the rest of this meeting pretty entertaining, actually, to sit through. That wasn't nearly as bad as I thought it was going to be.
As a last thing on this, I'd like to say that you guys all know this because you've lived in Dummerston much longer than me, but Covered Bridge and that parking lot, that humble little parking lot, is the face of our town for most of the visitors to this area. And it's what they see of Dummerston.
And if you look on any website, it's the picture, the photograph on Yelp, on Google Maps or whatever, is that view at the bottom of the steps, looking down the river with the covered bridge. And
SEVWA, Southeastern Vermont Watershed Alliance, has officially passed along ownership of that small kiosk at the Park and Ride to us. So we hope to also use that for Dummerston Conservation Commission literature and the town.
And anything that the town might like. I mean, that's a fairly sizable, was it maybe 4 foot by 4 foot.
It's small.
Sort of maybe smaller than that.
Yeah.
But that's an opportunity for any kind of public notice. That's right.
Thank you.
Right.
So, this is signed. Go back to the town office unless you have other plans for it.
No, I'm not particularly familiar with the permitting process. I assumed that you guys knew where to bring it.
I'll hope for the best.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Any other permits? No? Okay, moving on.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
And we'll look for that memorandum of understanding.
Right, I'll prepare this Wednesday by the end of the week.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Let's see.
Thank you.
We have a contract for a new fire truck that the voters approved at town meeting. And let's see. Where would that be? But it was for $499,427.
Something like that.
Yeah. And the voters approved a fire truck not to exceed 500,000. So the concern is when we start adding interest to those payments, because we finance it would be well over to 500,000. And I guess we had thought it was we would take the fire truck would be ready in 2 years.
Yeah, 28 months out.
Yeah, and one of the contracts says that it would be ready 180 days, but then I think another one says another part.
Yeah.
And so maybe you could explain that too.
There may be a little confusion. One part's the chassis,
Yeah. Okay.
and the rest of the truck.
The chassis part would be the one going up. That's not through E1. That's international truck itself. Because the way they do things, because it's 2 years out with the chassis.
Yeah.
So that to keep building up interest rates on that, we have no idea what that would be. And I think Garth, because of what Garth said, that they're going to be going up at that. So we have no idea what it will be in 2 years. Interest rate, what the international will be doing. So.
Well, the voters approved up to 500,000,
Including interest.
including interest. So we have a bit of a problem here. How do we deal with that?
Yeah, when you came to us, you said it was, you talked to Garth and he had a price of 460 something. So we added another 40,000 thinking that would cover interest. But so between the time that you told us that price and we got this contract, the cost went up $30,000.
You know, I think that was with the, plus what it was back then when we talked to you, then the interest rate went up that from that, I believe.
Or price tag.
The price tag, yeah, of the truck.
Well, that wouldn't be interest rate, right? That would be the price, truck price.
Yeah.
Went up.
Yes, yes.
And one of our concerns is, I don't know if any of you know me, I'm Larry, the secretary. One of our concerns is the more we keep delaying this, the higher the price tag is gonna get before we get it in the bill.
Sure.
That's one concern.
You can't have a supplemental, right? I mean, we have to go back to the voters, don't we? Something like that.
I mean, the select board has some discretion over budget items, but this was a separate article that's coming out of the capital fund. And we specifically worded the article in such a way that it was not to exceed $500,000 and that we were going to finance it over a period of 5 years, starting in 2025. So
We thought we had a cushion.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's what is that, like a 9% increase?
Yeah.
So that's pretty significant. So I guess one of my questions to you guys, is there any bells and whistles that got added?
We're bare
Or
bones
that can
now.
come off
We're bare bones
to
now.
get it below, back down to the original?
We didn't change anything from the time of the last conversation.
No water, everything else.
I don't know.
And we're taking stuff off the old truck to put on this one to keep it cheaper. Our deck gun, would be big money. We're using our old deck gun off old M3 to put on a new truck.
All of our nozzle mounts, ladder mounts, wood fire mounts are coming off a couple weeks prior to delivery.
You know, get a mount for us.
I mean, I'm not so sure that we can sign the contract because we know that it's going to be over what the voters approved.
Right, and yeah, having to hold a special town meeting takes time.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's not, I would feel differently if it was, say $10,000 more, but this is going to be significant because now not only is it $30,000 or $40,000 more than what was the original, but now you can tack on interest on now almost $500,000.
So it's gonna get up to 550, probably,
Yeah.
who knows?
Who knows? Yeah.
Interest rates are going up.
Yeah.
Right.
Let's see.
I mean, I know that the voters passed it overwhelmingly.
Right.
But then I would have to say that at $500,000, obviously there were some that didn't vote for it, that they had reservations. So my concern would be, had we put it out there at, say, $550,000 or $575,000, would that persuaded others to not vote for it?
Well, it probably would. I mean,
Yes.
it probably
Right. I mean,
would.
we're not talking. This is a significant amount of money.
Yeah.
The select board has discretionary powers to borrow some money, but this is sort of a bigger ticket.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Probably, if we have a special town meeting, we'll have, 30 people show up, they'll approve.
It'll prove it, yeah,
Mhm.
for sure. Yeah.
And I think we would have to warn that, that, I think it's not less than 30 days
Yeah.
in the future. Well, I was hoping you were going to say, sorry, that number was wrong. It really was 460,000.
And that was just a number he shot off the hip back in whenever we first spoke to it.
It sounded like it was more that you got an actual estimate from Garth, so it wasn't a shot off.
Well, he's basing it off our engine one and inflation rate as of then, not to the exact specs of the truck today,
Right.
which standards have changed in NFPA.
You must be aware that, fire departments go to their town for the voters to approve, and, the money has to be approved by voters, and so I would think that they'd use a sharper pencil than that.
Did the quote come in before or after the Australian ballot?
After.
Because I raised my eyebrows a little bit seeing that the town voted to approve up to 500,000, and the new quote came in at 499.99.
Right.
Very, as if the supplier knew that we could spend up to 500,000. So I think that's what I'm struggling with.
Yeah, good point.
And I'm assuming the fire department, if the town spent $500,000, I'm assuming the fire department doesn't have the funds to cover the difference.
They just have cramping my leg in.
That's a long meeting.
Yeah.
Any different numbers in there?
No, I think that number was, yeah, it's the same stuff you have. I guess.
I don't know that we can, I'm not comfortable, unfortunately, going that far above and beyond what the taxpayers voted on.
Yeah, me too. I'm sorry.
Then, well, two people, I don't know what you feel.
Well, I guess I haven't heard a direct response whether the fire department has funds that, or an ability to raise funds that might cover the difference.
We do fundraising now, that's just to keep our place operating, to keep people safe in town.
Let's see.
What I can do is, I can talk to Gareth and see what we can do with some different numbers.
Yeah, that would be good. I was thinking, where it's not going to be delivered, and we don't have to pay until
For 2 years now.
or 2 years. But still, we could go to the voters, at next town meeting and explain, but
then the price might have gone up further.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
I think going back to Garth, I'm not sure who Garth is.
He's a citizen for E1,
Okay.
just so we see.
Yeah, mentioned to him our quandary. Hands are tied.
Right. And, the voters are overwhelmingly in favor of the new truck, but it feels like it sort of feels to me like we weren't being completely honest with them if we know that just a couple weeks later it's gone up, $75,000 or $60,000 more. So my feeling is we'd have to ask, buy the book to approve this.
Yeah.
I can see what I can do on my end and I'll let folks know. I'll see what I can do on my end with the salesperson and let folks know what's going on.
Okay.
See what we can do.
If they can.
See if you can sharpen his pencil a little more for us.
Yeah, if they can get it back down closer to what it was when you gave us the number. If it's helpful, I'd be willing to have a special meeting to approve it.
Would it be possible to have a bid come in that leaves off a couple of parts that could be retrofit on later? Or is it?
No, this is factory, all factory stuff. We're just adding stuff from the pump, like deck guns and things like that from the old truck, but anything else is all done from the factory.
How about they leave off the wheels?
I'm sure I told somebody out in the park on it.
We'll take the pump out of it.
You know, then at next town meeting, we could see if the voters want to buy tires.
Yeah. Truck isn't doing.
That's happened before back in the days, not this town, but I've heard.
So here's a thought, and I know it's not gonna be a whole lot, but what do you anticipate getting from the proceeds of the sale of the old truck?
Well, I talked to Garth and we're gonna put it on a trailer and see what the pump comes out at, and that will determine the price if E1 will buy it from us, what he can give us our price for it.
Okay.
So they're scheduled something with Putney, and he's gonna contact me and let me know, and that, and we can bring engine 3 over and have it tested.
Okay. Because that, I mean, I don't think it's gonna be a
This will
lot.
be better at a private sale,
Right.
but I want to sit until you have an idea, then I'll let you know that price what Garth is gonna give us for
Because that would help
the
bring the
1999
cost
Freightliner.
down.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very good.
Yeah, but we're trying to get the most money we can for it because there might be people interested, so there might be somebody who wants more than that. Because if it doesn't pass, it sells a fire truck for them.
I mean,
They'd have
similar to
to,
what we
probably
have
have to
in
throw
the
the
town.
pump in that because that's what we're having problems with. So that's what pumps a lot of money.
But at least see where the pump's at.
Yeah,
Right.
see where that, and then he knows where what you're asking, what he can give us for a fair price.
Right,
We just
exactly.
got twice.
But he did tell us right out you would get better money out of a private sale,
Oh,
but then
absolutely.
we know E1 would give us
Right.
factory fire.
But you have, at least you have a starting point.
Exactly, we know somewhere to start with.
Yes.
Right.
In getting rid of an older truck, we just got twice what the trade-in would have been by selling it on our own.
Yeah, you do get a lot more that way.
Mhm.
Okay, I'll do what I can now.
Yep.
Thank you, folks.
You can get some
Give some different numbers.
numbers that are. closer
Actually, we
to
get the
them.
numbers and I'll have Gareth email them to you, the Selectboard.
Yeah.
Okay, and you guys will get them right on there.
Yeah.
So that'd be the best way probably. You
Yes.
have everything on
Yeah.
right here in
Then
front of you.
we'll all get it.
Yeah.
Are you starting to get
I
that?
am now.
Okay.
I'll have to.
Yeah, and so,
Yeah.
yep, if we need a special meeting to, numbers come together, so we can do that.
Maybe we can do it because we've been dealing with the town here for over 30 years, so. See what they can do.
I just wish it wasn't so much. You know,
Yeah.
like I
You
said,
still-
we have some
we do too.
discretion, but not that much. I mean,
We were quite shocked ourselves.
yeah.
I was just kind of sweating bullets, so I went my way. Thank you, folks. And Frank put that information ASAP to you.
You have to wait a long time before you could get to talking.
That was an interesting one. I go, boy, this guy's gonna be the bad one when we come off.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thanks for, waiting.
Yes.
No problem. Have a good evening.
Take care.
David, you were going to give us an update on,
Merck.
okay.
This is the Act 172 program. It's to provide grants for initially for energy audits. And there's it's an energy audit that is a special one. It's not much different than the ones that we've had done. But you need to have their audit in order to get into the program to be considered for the actual grant later on for the improvement of the energy efficiency of the buildings, of the municipal buildings. You can choose one of the buildings in your town only, and then ask for have the audit for free, and then apply for the grant. We are in the middle of in terms of the amount of money our community spends on energy, we're right in the middle. So we're not at a high priority to get ultimately to get the grant, to get grants. But it's possible. So the question is, there's an informational meeting tomorrow. I think that some of your Conservation Commission will be
Energy Committee, but
I'm sorry, Energy Committee.
I'm planning to attend.
Oh, okay, great. So that'll give us more information. We'll be able to ask any questions that we want. And so find out whether it's something that, you know, the town wants to participate in. Is it worthwhile for us to be involved? I don't know yet. We need to learn more.
And it's couched as community resilience, right, rather than just saving energy. So
Yes, yes.
I want to find out what that means.
Yeah.
Okay. And did you meet with the Megan Brooke from the Agency of Transportation?
Yes, we did. Charlotte.
Yeah.
And I was there, and Lee, of course. And they talked about the grants that were available for repairs to the roads, paving, and structures. Those three levels. We can apply for the road repairs it looks like we'll be able to get a grant there for of around $24,000, of which the state pays 90% or 9%, I guess. It's a 90-10 split, and you're able to upgrade the road beds to the current standards. So even if you don't have proper stones, or I'm not sure the right terms here, but you can do that. So there's going to be money available for that. This is, of course, from the storm, right? We're not going to qualify for FEMA funds in the state, but there will still be this available. Paving, we will be eligible for $200,000. And then structures, we're a little bit down the line on that. Well, probably 4 years from now, another $200,000. That's basically.
Great. And let's see, the threshold for the emergency or disaster, if we have a storm that's over a certain amount, then
In the state?
Yeah, no, the transportation agency of transportation kicks in after 17,000 or something like that. That's they figure that out every time these meetings.
Okay. I didn't pick that up.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, David, for doing that. Any other new business?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.